So evolved NLP just adds energetics into the mix. So there's another element of being able to clear denial and alchemical forgiveness and being able to kind of really shift energy and recalibrate and re-regulate the nervous system. And then just 10x's that mastery of communication in a different way and giving people the ability to have that mastery of communication and understanding how they process and how everyone has their model of the world. And then coupled with my expertise of being a quantum time release practitioner, we get to actually release all the negative charge that we're holding on to at a cellular level of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame in a completely painless, peaceful process where we get to release all of that without going into any of the conscious memory of the traumatic events that caused the pain in the first place.
Hello, darlings, and welcome to Not Over, Just Different. I'm Natalie Ledwell, and I'm here to share deeply insightful and vulnerable conversations with you from people who are willing to open up and share what their journey's been like so that you can learn and be inspired to take action in yours. It's never too late to begin again or to see a new perspective. No matter what your dreams or goals are, you'll find inspiration and community here. It's time to rediscover yourself, reignite your passions, and make the next 50 years even more full than the first. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast for this week. This week, my special guest is Riana Malia. Hi, Riana. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I am excited to have you here because the subject we're going to talk about today is, I think it's going to be exceptionally helpful to a lot of women who are listening to this podcast. And that is all about how do we get unstuck? You know, I think that for a lot of us, we get to this time of our life and we've had a certain level of success in whatever endeavor that is. But we get to this point where we're just like something is stopping us from moving forward, or it's calling us to look at something deeper so that we can continue forward in a more empowered way. So I know that you've worked with many, many women with this particular challenge. So tell me, what is it that you see a lot of women experiencing when they get to this time in their life?
Yes. So it's such a common experience to have that, like, all right, I was, a wife, a mama, I've had my career, I've done all these things, and then things shift, whether it's a divorce or empty nest or just kind of coming to this place in our life where we start to go, well, who am I now? Like, who am I now? Like, what are the things that light me up, that give me purpose? Often, as women, we spend so much time taking care of everyone else. So sometimes that identity kind of falls away. People will come to me for a variety of reasons, but there is such a common theme around that sense of like, I know that there's something that's meant for me. I know that my life is meant for more. I know that I'm meant for more. I just don't know what it is. Or there's a sense of what they want, but they have no idea how to get there because they find themselves in the same circumstances and situations over and over again, which can be really frustrating, especially when they've done all the things that they were told to do, right? Ambitious, successful women. They've talked about it in therapy. They've talked about it with their girlfriends. They've read the books. They've listened to the podcast. They've given it time. And yet, while all of those things are beneficial, it's kind of that temporary resolution and temporary peace. And then in the middle of the night, when you're laying there running through all the scenarios and you're like, but I've done the things and there's some progress and there's some movement, but there's internally, I'm still stuck.
Yeah. I know. Well, my version of this story was when my marriage ended. And I remember thinking, because, we'd been together for 20 years. And I'm like, I don't even know who I am without him. It was Glenn and Nat the whole time. And I think it took me a few days. I got there pretty quickly. But I remember then going, wait, that's the wrong question. The question is, who do I want to be? Because I get a clean slate now. Like and I don't have to worry about, what my husband thinks or whatever. I'm like, I can emerge new from this experience and be whatever it is that I want to be. And so that started that whole personal development journey for me. So what was your experience of this? What got you, interested in doing this kind of work?
So I too had a divorce that, was a long time coming. It wasn't a surprise or something that, was shocking. Didn't make it any less painful. And then it turned into something, crazy. I mean, we kind of thought it was going to be amicable and easy, and it just didn't end up that way. So after that, there was a time, again, where I was diving deep into the therapy and talking about it all the time. And, at a certain point, when you keep telling the same story, it keeps you stuck. It keeps that neurology reinstalled, right? And it keeps that alive and center. And then you wonder why you can't move forward or why the same things keep showing up in your life. And then I had an experience where I actually moved my daughter, my mother, 2 horses and 3 cats across the country from Minnesota to California to take over a family business. And it became clear to me very quickly that it was not viable. And not only that, but there was stuff going on that was, very shady, my entire livelihood in danger. And all of a sudden ended up in a position in California where I didn't know anyone. I now had no family here, no business, no income. And I had made a promise to my little girl who was 9 that I was only going to disrupt her life once. So I was really in this heavy space of like, what did I do? Why didn't I listen to my intuition? Now I have to figure it out. And there was a lot of shame around that. And there was a lot of guilt. And there was all of these emotions and feelings. And so again, try to deal with the betrayal piece and figuring out what to do and tapping into the, I tell my clients all the time, I'm a magnet for miracles. So I had to tap into that resourcefulness and figure it out, right? And in that time, when I was back having those conversations in a therapeutic space, in a traditional therapeutic space, someone introduced to me similar to the work that I've created for my life's work. And in a matter of weeks, there was parts of me I didn't recognize in all the best ways versus, continuing that same story. And I love what you said about after your divorce, the clean slate, right? So I've founded my methodology. It's called the Clear to Create method, and the quantum pattern protocol is the framework to actually do the work. But we all want to live our version of our very best life. But the truth is, you can't just go from stuck to living your very best life. First, you have to get clear, right? Which, like you said, you had to figure out and get clear about who you are. And then we have to clear away all that stuff that isn't serving you, all the way to the past, to release all those blocks that are keeping you stuck, those patterns and those cycles, so that we can actually create the love and the life that you are meant to live, instead of just that maddening circle of just continuing to wish for it and never, ever having it.
And I think that if you're listening to this podcast and you have been someone who's like, right, and maybe there has been a big change in your life and you're going through a transition of sorts, and then you go, okay, well, this is what I want. And you're taking 2 steps forward, but then 1 step back, and then 3 steps forward, and then 4 steps back. And, you're back and forth the whole time. More often than not, the reason that you're doing that is there is some kind of blockage or an old program or a whole pattern that's holding you back, because consciously you want something different for yourself, but subconsciously, which is, subconscious is really running the show, it keeps pulling you back because subconsciously you don't believe that you deserve it, or that you're worthy, or that you're pretty enough or smart enough, or whatever that program is for you. So I know that you just touched on the quantum
Pattern protocol?
Yeah. So, because I noticed that you have studied NLP, which, I'm also an NLP practitioner and I love NLP, but you do something called evolved NLP. So let's dive a little bit into that. So what makes that different, and how does that, serve us?
Yes, absolutely. So evolved NLP, it adds energetics into the mix. So there's another element of being able to clear denial and alchemical forgiveness, and being able to kind of really shift energy and recalibrate and re-regulate the nervous system. And then just kind of, just 10x's that mastery of communication in a different way, and giving people the ability to have that mastery of communication and understanding how they process and how everyone has their model of the world. And then coupled with my expertise of being a quantum time release practitioner, we get to actually release all the negative charge that we're holding on to at a cellular level of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame in a completely painless, peaceful process, where we get to release all of that without going into any of the conscious memory of the traumatic events that caused the pain in the first place.
Right. Well, because that's the thing. I mean, even when I'm doing work around limiting beliefs and programs, the argument or the debate is always, do you need to know the point of origin to be able to clear the program? And you're saying that that's not the case.
So what's so amazing about QTR, quantum time release, is it's a completely unconscious process. Now, that doesn't mean you're unconscious. You're very comfortably in your cozy bed or your sofa or your chair, whatever. And you're very relaxed and your eyes are closed for most of the time. And it's a multidimensional technique, and we're doing timeline work. But we actually tap into that other 90% of you, the unconscious mind, right? So if our conscious mind, and you alluded to this earlier, is, it's our critical faculties, it's our goal setter, we use it all day long, it's 10%. But that other 90% of us, the unconscious mind, which is everything from the neck down, is, as you said, the general. It's the operating system. It's the literal library of everything we've ever experienced, right? And if you think about a piece of ribbon, or I think about twine because I grew up in a tiny town in southern Minnesota in a horse barn. And so I think of like the twine off the bales of hay, but ribbon or twine, whatever you think of. And imagine that throughout your lifetime, after that root cause, that first instance of that emotion, every significant emotional experience that you've had, it's like a marble goes on that ribbon. So today, if something happens that makes you angry or sad or whatever, it's not the thing that happens today. It's the 50, 60 years of marbles behind it. That's that charge. And that's what quantum time release, you get to release all that built up that's being held in the body, which when it's not released, right, we see patterns and behaviors and cycles and being stuck. We see anxiety and depression and autoimmune disorders and illness and injury and disease and all this that manifest in our body because memory is cellular and because we're holding on to that. So root cause is nothing you have conscious memory of, but your unconscious does. So we get to clear that, and then everything after that, all of those marbles get to be released. And what's so magical is after each of those emotions, so as we release it in that order, and then all the limiting beliefs and limiting decisions that have, been a result of all the traumas and all the childhood stuff and all the things that we carry around and stories that we tell ourselves, I will ask people to do a check. So I'll say, now I'd like you to actually think about a very specific event where in the past, let's say anger had been a problem. And I'd like you to check and see if it still has a charge, though you may realize it does not. And everyone is just blown away because they're like, if you would have asked me that 3 hours ago, I would have fully felt it in my body. The visceral reaction of the anger, my heart rate would have gone up. I would have been right back in it. And they're like, there's just no charge. So it gives you that clean slate energetically. We get to future pace and actually create new neurology and new relationship with those emotions going forward because we're human. We're still going to feel them. But the 50 years of charge is gone.
Yeah.
So now you get to be open to what's meant for you, right? And you get to actually manifest and call in the things that you want in your world versus continuing to attract more of what you don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that when you have like a wound or a trigger like that, it's not like you ever forget. You just don't have the charge.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in my relationship with Bert, my wound or my trigger was like if I was being told what to do or I felt like I was being judged. So I would just react viscerally to that. Now, moving forward, if someone's telling me what to do, actually, I don't feel like I'm being judged anymore, but if someone's telling me what to do, I just notice it and then, okay. And it's not like I have any reaction or anything to it. It's just like I notice it. I still notice that it's connected to something from the past, but the emotional charge that comes with it seems to have dissipated. Is that how it works?
Yes. I mean, in the simplest form, absolutely. Again, we're not wiping out memory, but the root cause of negative emotion isn't anything you have conscious memory of in the first place. So when we're doing the work, we're not going back to something that happened when you were 5 that made you sad, right? We're going to something that you don't have that conscious memory of so we can clear it and transmute all of that energy. And it just is incredible because like we've been talking about today, you really have to clear the story to create your life, right? And if you want a new story, you have to quit telling the old one. So you have to clear the story to create your life. You have to clear the patterns to create the partnership, whether it's romantic or personal or professional. You have to clear all of the cycles to create the confidence, right? And be able to trust yourself again. How many times you were like, I don't know, I thought I had it. And then look how that turned out. And we kind of lose that sense of being able to trust ourselves. So I talk a lot about making values-driven decisions and being able to make clean yes and clean no's, the most important thing for us. And then sometimes there's you have to clear the resentment to create the results. And you got to clear the loss to create the love. So we have to clear so that we can create. We can't skip over it. But also the beautiful thing about this work is it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out, heavy either. It gets to be painless and peaceful and actually quite fast and pretty gentle.
Yeah. No, I love that. And you were mentioning before about, when you're sitting and you keep retelling the story over and over again, all that's doing is keeping you tethered to that past event. Okay. So in the work that you do you help people reframe the story? Or is it just that, we remember the story, but it just doesn't have the meaning that it used to have?
in the work that I do in part of the protocol, the very first thing is what I call a limitless life launch call. And I always tell everyone it's the only part of this process that feels therapy-ish because it's a deep dive. And so I'm using quantum linguistics and I'm asking you a bunch of questions and you're doing all of the talking. And sometimes I'm going to ask you things more than once. And sometimes it's going to be confusing and that's all intentional. But the point of that session is to kind of get a little bit of that story out, right? Get really clear about where you've been, but crystal clear about what you want. So we can create an evidence procedure. So we can create that. What are you doing differently? What are you doing or not doing differently than you're doing or not doing right now in this stuck place? But also underneath everything, what's driving it? Is it an un or a less? Is it that you're unworthy, that you're unloved, that you're powerless, that you're hopeless, that everyone leaves you? Like, what is driving it all so that we can really get to that? And oftentimes we'll be in the midst of a conversation in the work and I'll stop people and say, I love you. And it is not about your ex-husband and what he did to you 15 years ago. It's irrelevant. So we're so wired to go back into the story and back into the drama. And, you can be happy or you can be right. And once, my clients get to a certain point and I'm like, the next time someone asks you, you're going to feel it in your body and you're going to be like, oh God, I don't want to hear myself say those words. I'm so sick of telling this whole dramatic thing. Quit telling the story. Like, just stop telling the story. And it's amazing what shifts in their world and in their relationships. And just that heaviness kind of dissipates because people think they're being helpful, asking, how are you doing? And what happened? And then you go right back into the drama and all of that stuff. Like you said, it's like that tether is just ball and chain.
Yeah.
And of course, you're never going to move on and move forward and be happy and heal and let go and clear because you just keep living that story over and over. And that's all that you're going to continue to get, right? That's what has to show up.
Is it time for a career change? Find out with our free 30-second quiz. This simple yet potent tool will help you determine if a new career path is right for you. Don't miss out the chance to turn your life around. Go to mindmovies.com/career quiz.
Yeah, and I think too that a lot of the times we tell the story as if it just happened. So we're telling it from the point of pain or the point of victimhood or the point of where it's the other person's fault. But when we get to this place of, evolution, it's like, okay, well, we know different now. Like we know that we can see this differently. It means something different. So let's talk about it from that, particular viewpoint rather than being stuck, especially the blame game. At the end of my marriage, oh my God, my husband got the blame for everything until we separated and then I had no one to blame anymore, except for me. So I'm like, was it me all along? Maybe it was. I don't know.
I love that. There's a frame that I teach called cause and effect. And it is all about like owning our circumstances in it. So, if you're in cause, you're powerfully owning everything that you've created, and it might suck. But then the question to ask yourself is, there's a couple things. Number one, what does this have to do with me? Number two, what can I learn here? And number three, what could I be doing or not doing differently that's actually aligned with what I say I want? When we're in effect, we're blaming, complaining, justifying. We're at the mercy of. We're in the victim archetype. Why everything always happens to me. I always get the short end of the stick. This always happens to me, blah, 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 blah. So when you can step out of that, like it's like that kind of whiny, victim-y place where, you're powerless and you can put yourself back into cause where you powerfully own all of it, then it's a very different existence. And then, you can tell the story with ownership of like, this is what happened. There isn't really, it takes away that I'm right, you're wrong stuff. Just takes it away because when we process communication, we can only take in so much. So we're going to miss stuff, right? Or we're always going to miss stuff.
Yeah. And I think when you're blaming someone or something outside of you, you have no control of being able to heal from it because it's someone else's fault and you can't do anything about that. But like you said, as soon as you start to take responsibility and ownership for your contribution to that particular situation, that's when you can change your world. That's when everything changes.
Everything changes.
Yeah. So can you share an example of someone that you've worked with, a story of someone that you've been working with that has really, through doing this work, has completely shifted, what their life looks like and how they are moving forward?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like there's been so many recently that have been so magical. Let me tell you about my client, Christiane. She lives in New York. So I want you to imagine what you would imagine with a Italian New Yorker. She's tall. She's got dark hair. She's got a big personality, right? She came to me and she had been in this divorce process for a while, but she'd actually had another relationship for over the course of a year. And she was so angry at her ex-husband and she was so hurt about this person that she had been with and they were no longer together. And she just, kept doing the same thing over and over again. She was stuck about what to do professionally. She went back and got another degree and she really wanted to do something with it, didn't know what to do. So we started working together. And about 4 weeks in, she sent me text and she said, can we jump on a quick call? Of course. She said, I have to tell you this. She said, every Friday night I go out with my girlfriends for happy hour and we do, we have wine and apps and whatever. And she said, so this was a Saturday. So she said, on last night we went out and my friends were very, very serious. And they said, we have to kind of talk to you. Like, are you doing drugs? Like, what's going on? And she started laughing and she's like, what? And they're like, you're so much calmer. You're so much nicer. And we haven't heard you mention Michael, like in, 10 days. Like you're talking about things you're doing and stuff that you're up to. Cause normally she's just was complaining and not in it, just in it. So as a result of this work, not only was she able to actually reframe and understand, but she was able to hold space and create space for them to be together for their son's high school graduation, which she said, never in a million years. We can't be in the same room together. And 3 weeks later, they joint hosted a celebration for their son, which she said was impossible, could never happen. And so she said, can I date while we're doing this? And I said, listen, you are a grown ass woman. You can do whatever you want to do. And let's do it differently, right? So her normal behavior, her patterns in relationship was she'd meet somebody, they would be mesmerized with her and they would want all of her time. And she would be like, sure, I'll see you every day this week. And then she would ignore the red flags because she would have all of this noise in her head about, well, what if no one else loves me and wants me and I'm this old and I'm this broken and I'm this damaged, blah, 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 and I have these kids. And so she would ignore all of that. So instead, we do some work where we create a soul connection codex in this work and an aligned attraction blueprint. So you get really, really clear about who you are and who and what you want so that you can very quickly decide and know if this person is even a possibility, if this person is a yes or a no. So we implemented that and she was like, this is probably the most incredible gift I've ever been given because I can tell now I know, like I have this incredible tool. I'm like, nope, that isn't on my non-negotiable list. It's a no. I'm not ignoring that anymore. And then in the work, we also do, I just think it's really important to not so much work in our industry focuses on awareness and clarity, but then you don't get the skills to go with the knowledge. So you're like, oh, I had this aha and now I get it. Well, what the heck do I do with it?
Right.
Because if we're going to blow out programming and strategy and behavior, we have to replace it with something.
Exactly.
Otherwise, brain can't fill in the blanks and you revert back to all the old crap. So we got to give you the skills to go with the knowledge to implement all of that and install new behavior and strategy neurology so that you get to fall in love with yourself again and trust yourself and confidently hold boundaries and expertly communicate your needs and deepen the richness in every single one of your relationships. But what we also do then is take it a step further and go, okay, what is it that you want? Now that we've created this clear and passionate vision for your future, let's actually make it happen. So we reverse engineer your goals and then we install them on your timeline so that your brain experiences in all 5 senses, which ignites the reticular activating system in the brain to be laser focused for looking for the resources and the people and the opportunity and the experiences to make sure you actually achieve and live this life. So we did that for her on a Monday. We reverse engineered a professional goal for her. And what she wanted did not exist in the county she lived in. And she has still a daughter in high school. She's not moving. So we did the work. We installed on her timeline. 3 days later, and I'm not exaggerating, I think she talked about this in an interview somewhere. She called me screaming and she said, I just got a job offer for a job that didn't exist. The exact thing that we reverse engineered today, 72 hours later. So now she got to open private practice for young adults that are, struggling with mental health in her county in New York. And they didn't have this company that she wanted to work for. They didn't have anything in that part of the state. So she obviously was like, it's not going to work. And they're like, well, what would you think about opening your own? And she was just floored. So the cool thing about this work is no matter what you come into it for, it affects everything, right? You get to clear and you get to create, and you get to heal what needs to be healed. You get to get rid of all of that stuff and you get to have that renewed sense of hope and confidence and a rock solid love for you and your version of your very best life that you're creating.
Yeah. Well, and this is what I also love about this time of life because, we've had the responsibilities, we've done what we've had to do. Some of us have, towed the line and got the married and did everything that society wanted of us. But now we're at this place where our health is amazing. We've got all this experience under our belt and we're in a better financial position probably than we have been before. And we've got this ability to, and like you said, this yearning to want to give back. What is my purpose? Like now that I'm in this part of my life, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing to make a difference? And I think that when you step into or you dip your toe into that water, what will come to the surface is the old stuff that we haven't maybe dealt with yet, and I think that having tools like this are really helpful in us helping to clear that because, there is no reason why this next chapter of our life can't be way better than the first. Like, seriously.
The best, literally. And what's so exciting about that is, like you just said, you've done all that other stuff. And now you have all of this experience and this wisdom and all the things that you've gone through and survived. And now you get to between now and dead, yes, I want, I'm going to live my hell yes life. It's not a hell yes, forget it. I'm done with, kind of that line in the sand where people get to that place where they're like, I want to live. I want to be immersed in the things that give me joy. And the rest of it is just noise.
No, I love that. So where can people find you? If they wanted to reach out to you and wanted to do some work and things with you, how can they find you and how do you work with people?
Absolutely. So all of my work is private. So it's one-to-one work. This is intimate, deep. This is you and me co-creating together. So this is not something that it's done in a group setting. So it's intimate work. There's a couple ways to work together. The Clear to Create Quantum Intensive, which is very fast, 10 weeks. We go through the whole protocol. It is amazing on the other side of 10 weeks. What's different and what's gone and what's showing up. And then there's the mastery experience, which starts with the intensive, but then we get to play in a really big way together for the entire year. So women that want to be held in that, create every area of life, right? Health, wealth, career, love, happiness, joy, parenting, whatever. My website is very easy to find me, rianamalia.com. And on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Riana Malia. And on my website, there's a gifts page that I would love for all of your listeners to take advantage of. And I've put together some incredible things. Specifically, I feel like for our audience today, there's a journal that I created called Falling in Love with Myself Again. And I would love to give it to you guys. And you can find it on the gifts page. It's just going to help you step into that space and just start connecting to that part of you. And again, really falling in love with you again and figuring out who you are. And I would also love to offer your listeners a complimentary conversation with me to just help give them a little bit of clarity about maybe what's next and just kind of move them in that direction.
I love that. All right. So if anyone's listening, obviously we'll make sure that the links are in the show notes here as well. But if there was one thing that they could do, one small step or something they could do, if they find themselves in a place where they're feeling stuck, what would that one thing be?
I'm going to have you stop and take 2 minutes if you're not driving, and I want you to take 2 pieces of paper. On one, I want you to write away, and on the other, I want you to write toward. And I want you to imagine that those 2 pieces of paper are actual walls. Your away wall, I want you to write down everything you don't want in your life. More of, ever, again. Your toward wall, I want you to write down everything you do want. All your hopes, wishes, dreams, desires, everything. And here's what I want you to do for the next 3 days. I want you to pay attention when you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, you just don't feel good in your body. I promise you 99.9% of the time, you're thinking about something on that away wall. You're focused on what you don't want. And the universe and the unconscious mind does not hear the clarifying don't. Because we think 65 to 85,000 thoughts every day, right? 90% of those thoughts are recycled. 75% of them are negative, mostly because we're thinking about all the things we don't want. If you can wear a rubber band for the next 3 days, I promise you in 72 hours, your life will be different. Every time you find yourself in that space, snap it, right? Give yourself the pattern interrupt. And then I want you to look at something, take a picture on your phone so you have your toward list. I want you to just think about something on that list. And just for a few seconds, just think about something you're really grateful for. And if you're still feeling yucky, I want you to ask yourself, in this moment, who can I serve? And it doesn't have to be a big gesture. It can literally be an intention or a thought or text to a girlfriend, hey, thinking about you. I hope you're having a great day. And I promise you the fastest way to get unstuck and change your world is refocusing those thoughts and creating new neurology around it. So that's what I would have you do.
I love that. Well, Riana, thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, I think there's a lot of women that are listening to the podcast that are going to really relate to feeling stuck. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in every area of life, but it could be just one particular area that you go, what is this that's stopping me here?
Yes.
And you've shared some amazing information. So thank you so much for your time, darling. It's been great chatting with you.
Me too.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Not Over, Just Different. If you felt inspired by this episode, please subscribe and drop a comment below to let us know what you loved. My goal is to reignite the spark that you may think you've lost and cultivate a space where no matter what walk of life you are, you can step into the world with power and confidence. I would love to hear your reviews. It helps us to reach more incredible women like you. So until next time, keep growing, keep striving, and keep believing in the power of your potential. Here's to living your best life now.